Thank you so much for this honor that I'm able to stand here and share the experiences of the World Bank and what we are doing in today's session, which is on sustainable financing and renewable energy and beyond. So South Asia, we all know, is playing and is going to play even more important role in looking at the 1.5-degree targets of climate change as we look in the future. And within South Asia, India plays a very dominant role. So we are actually at the center stage of the developments that are happening in the climate change. And it's very heartening to note that the government of India is taking a lot of strides. They are taking a lot of initiatives in turning around at how we can improve on the decarbonization strategies and achieve our own net zero emission targets. In that context, what we have also noticed that whatever we have been doing so far in the renewable energy space, be it solar or wind, probably is not enough. And hence, there are new and innovative solutions that are required to be furthered and advanced. And when I talk about it, it would mean that you are combining various technologies. It could be solar with batteries or wind, floating solar, many more new technologies like green hydrogen. All of them are going to play a very critical role. And as we talk about these newer technologies, there is where the risk perception and hence the investment accessibility also comes in. So when we talk about these newer technologies, our general sense of the market and other panelists have also spoken about the same thing, is that the risk perception generally is very high. Not only because of the technology, but generally also because there are no set examples and there are no demonstration projects. And then you never know that how a technology would perform in a given country conditions. So this is where generally, the multilateral and the bilateral banks' role come in. We being a development partners to the government, we try to come forward with a lot of solid analytical services in the sense that we do a lot of upstream activities to know where the challenges lie in a given technology, what needs to be done in the context of the country, where we can bring in the financing and where we can bring the soft support. So in that context, the bank's strategy, the World Bank's strategy here in India is that we have followed a 5-pillar approach. And when we talk about the 5 pillars, the first one is, of course, on promoting renewable energy. Under that, we have supported the government of India's strategy since 2007 or 8, initially with a lot of analytical works on decentralized rooftop solar, then solar park scheme and all. And then we, once we knew that what kind of business models work, should we support public sector in certain technologies, and where we should allow the private sector players to come in became very important. And that principle, I think, is extremely, extremely critical because as we also heard some of the co-panelists saying that almost 80% of the financing requirements of about $4 trillion over next several years is going to come from private sector. So we need to play a facilitating role. The government needs to play that role. And that is what we have been seeing, that wherever the business models are more conducive, government is coming forward. So for instance, the solar park scheme that the government of India has launched, we partnered with IRIDA. We supported with about $100 million of facility, very small facility. But it has leveraged private financing extremely high. If I take a specific example of Riva Solar Project, which is supplying power to Delhi Metro also, about $17 million of financing, just $17 million of bank financing into the shared infrastructure facilities, which essentially means the transmission infrastructure, etc. Equivalent amount of 17 million coming from the co-financing, total about 34 million, leveraged almost 20 times of private capital. It brought in about $600 million of private sector investments. And why it happened? Because of a lot of things that were done before the bids were launched. And there is where the sustainability of the financing aspect comes in. For instance, the market study was done in the sense that what the stakeholder perception was, where they found the risks are, where the gray areas were, how to have a risk-return allocation matrix, where to put the risk, who is the right responsible partner to take on that risk. Also, the long tenor concessional financing of the bank, which everybody was mentioning, the blended financing became very important because it helped in reducing the user charges, for instance, as well as it helped also bring forward the environmental social considerations that were ingrained in the technical design of the project. Data room was created, which was on the, during the bidding process, it was a real-time data center or data room, where the real-time improvements in the land acquisition and land transfer process was reflected. That gave a lot of confidence to the investors. That was the first state-level bid where a lot of international investments and investors were brought in. Not brought in, like they themselves shown interest. So this is the kind of sustainability aspect that we all must look into. Gradually, then we realized that as we look at the targets of the government and the country, and to reach net zero emission targets, standalone RE may not work out. How we should go ahead? We should bring in more storage options. So for instance, we are working with Chhattisgarh, with Solar Energy Corporation of India in Chhattisgarh project. It's a solar with battery project. And what it does is that it displaces the expensive fossil fuel electricity being bought by Chhattisgarh at the moment and displaced by RE power. And this is much more competitive because during the peak demand hours, these states need to go to the markets and buy at very expensive rates. So this is again another dimension of sustainability. Beyond that, what we are also doing, and our official from SIDBI is also here, we are through credit enhancement instrument supporting some of the ESCO models so that the risk perception around energy efficiency and the ESCOs are brought down. The similar kind of engagements we are doing as per the technological readiness level. For instance, in green hydrogen, we had a different approach altogether. We provided the funding to the government of India, which was recently approved by our board in June, about a $1.5 billion, which accelerated the policy actions from the government of India. And we have another set of policy actions for which another $1.5 billion will be processed within this calendar year. So, you need to strategize. Green hydrogen, as colleague from IRENA was saying, that it's there, but it's still not there. So where you need the support, where you use the multilaterals, very small pot of money available compared to the huge investment requirements is extremely important. So of the 5 pillars that I was saying, the first one is, of course, in renewable energy. The second pillar that we are very deeply working on is the distribution sector reforms, because distribution is the key, I would say, player in the entire chain, because it is the only place where the revenues is generated for the entire power sector value chain. We are looking at the industrialization, decarbonization, and energy efficiency measures. In the fourth pillar, we are looking at green hydrogen and like. And in the fifth pillar, we are looking at just transitions, which means that how we can bring together the economies which are dependent on coal, how we can include them so that they become part of the development. So with all those interventions, we are trying to see that where we can unlock private investments. We are very closely working with some of the funds like GAP, as Rockefeller official mentioned. We are trying to bring together other donor-funded facilities also, so that we collectively look for the same goal, that is how to further and advance this entire sustainability concept in the states. One last thing which I also wanted to mention, that in this whole story, the options are not restricted in the sense that we would only look at green hydrogen or we would look only at batteries, but we are looking at the entire spectrum of the things. We are looking, for instance, as promoting another, I would say diversify in the energy storage field, like pump storage. We are also assessing the various other storage technologies available, like direct air capture, etc., and see where exactly India can fit in at what point in time. We are also working with Himachal Pradesh to see that how the hydro can be valued for the water it stores, so that hydro can be promoted. At the moment, hydro is like any other generation project when it comes to the tariff. So all those activities is what we are working on in the hope that these interventions will open up the market and would attract more sustainable, cheaper financing to these technologies, because together is what we all have to work towards it. So any suggestions, any recommendations that you would have that how we can, help improve our engagement would be very welcome. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much.